I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong.
Hi there! Have you ever wondered why so many people don't invest? Or why many of those who do invest fail?
How can I help you, young man?
I got a $100 check from my grandma, and my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check in a money market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone.
What's all gone?
The money in your account. It didn't do too well. It's gone.
What do you mean? I have $100.
Not anymore, you don't. Poof.
Well, I have seen a lot of different so-called investors in my time, and yes, I know, that makes me sound old. And my teenage daughter, she also calls me old all the time, so I probably am. But with old age comes wisdom. At least that's what I tell myself. A lot of people seem to think that finance and investing is hard and dangerous, and just like math, there's only one right answer. Well, no matter who you are, 2 plus 2 always equals 4. But that's not really true in investing. In finance and investing, there is no right or wrong. It all depends, and there's a lot of factors it depends on. Like your age. If you lose money, can you recover before it's too late? How much is your income? How much can you invest? Expenses. Can you live on less for some time so you can invest more? What is your risk level? Can you stomach risk or not? And if you can, for how long? Where are you in life? Are you single? Are you dating? Are you engaged? Are you married? Do you have kids? If so, how many? Where do you live and why do you live there? What's your timeline? When will you need your money? Or when will you spend some of them? How much time are you willing to allocate for making money? And so on and on and on. All of these factors have an impact on your investing and how you manage money. When you learn to embrace that and stop comparing yourself to others, then you will find it a lot easier and you can find your own style. And just as I used to say, if it's working for you and it makes you happy, then you're doing it right. It does not help you to envy the person who bet $10,000 on Bitcoin back in 2014, or those who bought Tesla stock for $2 back in 2012 and held on to it. They are not you. You are not them. You don't know anything about their life and what they have been through or what they have done to get there. So stop comparing yourself to someone who could basically have been lucky, or like me, who mined a few Bitcoins back in 2014 and lost my computer where I had the info stored. So let's start from the beginning and see how we can fix this issue. A lot of people find excuses for not investing, and trust me, they're only excuses, and they hide the fact that they're afraid. Some of them are, I don't have enough money to start investing. False. You can start with as little as $50. I don't know how to invest. Then buy a cheap index fund. Everyone can do that. I need to educate myself more. True, but you can start with that index fund while you learn. Everything has to be perfect before I start. No,
Pretty, isn't
don't
it?
let perfection stand in the way of good.
Perfectly
Start now.
balanced, as all things should be.
Investing is gambling. No, definitely not. And I will address this one later. It's too late. Everything is too expensive. Well, maybe, but can you see the future? And who cares? Dollar cost averaging is always a good strategy. The old saying is still true. The best day to start investing was yesterday. The second best day is today. Why? Because compounding requires time. And you have to invest over time anyway. We're not at the bottom yet. Yeah, you as a beginner definitely know where the bottom is. Sure, and if you did, was it really the absolute bottom? Yeah, you definitely know where the bottom is. And if you did, was it really the absolute bottom? Really? Don't let excuses hold you back from getting rich. In the beginning, it can be scary and confusing, standing on the outside looking in. But once you dip your feet, you start to realize that investing can be extremely easy and requires almost no knowledge and not that much money either. It's all about starting. Be patient, don't get cute, stick to the plan. I can almost guarantee that you will be a millionaire if you invest regularly, live below your means, and do this for 25 to 30 years. You will become a millionaire, no matter what happens in between. Well, almost. The key here is consistency and investing as much as you can spare as early as you can. As an example, let's say we started investing at the worst possible time, at the top of the market back in March 2000, just before the dot-com bubble burst. Let's say we invested $5,000 and boom, the bubble burst. The market went down and kept going down, 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 and down. Almost 77% down from the peak. Oh, wow, we got hit here, huh? But wait a minute. We also invested $300 in April 2000, and in May, and in June, and in July, and so on, and so on, and so on. And if we just invested in, let's say, Vanguard's S&P 500 low-cost ETF, because it's a lot cheaper in fees than SPY, SPY, well, if we had invested like that with $300 every month since March 2000 until today, we would now have over $450,000. And the compound annual growth would have been almost 20%. Wow.
Wow.
And that's because the consistent investing every month got us the sweet deals when the markets were low, even if we paid premium when the market were high. It all levels out over time. And remember, from 2000 to March 2013, the S&P was basically flat. It's called the lost decade, and even under these absolutely worst conditions, we still made a lot of money, just by adding a little every month, just like clockwork, no matter what the markets did or what the macro was. We invested, like clockwork, consistently $300 every month. That's the power of compounding and time. By the way, if we never added more than the original $5,000, the end result would have been $27,000. Wow, not very much really. So, by far the biggest problem with new investors are they don't have the patience. They don't understand that it takes time to put the odds in your favor.
I'm going to invest $1,000 and I'm going to check back next Wednesday and see how it's done. And then, or maybe I'll check back, 2 weeks from now and see what's done. 6 months feels like a long time. Because if you were going to the gym for 6 months and you saw no progress, you're like, you're doing something wrong here. But in investing, like we know, it's not intuitive for people, but this is an endeavor where you might lose money over a 10-year period. And that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Investing is a very, very long endeavor. I think the closest example is like planting an oak tree. Like it takes, if you planted a seed in your backyard and checked it next Wednesday and you're like, oh, it doesn't work, it's a scam. You're like, no, it takes a long time. And the results are going to be magnificent, but it's going to take 50 years. And I think investing is really close to that. And it throws a lot of people off. By far the biggest problem for new investors is not understanding how much time is needed to put the odds of success in your favor. And it's not a month, it's not a year, it's something closer to 5 or 10 years before you're like, okay, if you've given it that much time, you should start to see most likely whether you're doing it right or wrong. But even in that scenario, even in 10 years, even if you're doing it right, it's not without precedent at all that maybe you've done fairly poorly. If the economy is doing really poorly, if there's a financial crisis, if there's a pandemic, whatever it might be. So that's what it's really a lifelong endeavor. And that's what screws people up if they're not familiar with that time frame.
The next issue most investors have is consistency. I see a lot of people who start investing in that low-cost ETF, and as they don't have the patience, they will start to invest in other things too. Maybe they work out, maybe they don't. If they had only added extra to that index fund, they would have seen that growth a lot faster. Remember, compounding takes time. Just look at Warren Buffett. 80% of his many billions came after the age of 50, even though he started at 11. Because compounding effect and the time it took to build that snowball, takes time. If you spend a lot of money on fancy clothes, nice cars, and all the other stuff you see on TikTok and Instagram, you are probably not living below your means, and there's a word for this. It's called broke. Wealthy people don't spend like that. They always spend less than they make. And if you saw my last video, they also use debt to spend a lot more and avoid taxes. But that's another video. If you invest $0, you will end up pushing shopping carts at Walmart when you're retired. If you're able to invest half of your take-home pay, it would only take 15 years for you to have enough money to never having to work again. But remember, the key is to balance your life. I mean, who wants to be rich when they're 80? You won't be able to travel the world, climb mountains, deep sea diving, see the 8 wonders of the world. We also need to live while we're young enough to enjoy it. That's why a lot of people talk about the 50-30-20% rule. You could see my video on this. It's fairly simple, using 50% of your income for your needs like rent, groceries, 30% for your wants like streaming, eating out at restaurants, vacations, and 20% for investing. I know 20% is a lot, but we need to get started.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
I think you forgot to hit the like button. Yes, I'm quite sure you forgot to hit it. Hey, don't worry, it's not too late, and it would make me really happy, so please, thanks. We know the S&P 500 has appreciated at least 10% a year over the last 40 years. This is why it's so important to invest early, as time does the work for you. Invest as much as you can, as early as you can. Compounding will help you regularly to add the extra boost to your portfolio. I have a colleague where I set up a simple portfolio back in 2015. He had almost $5,000 and would like to start investing, but he had no idea how to do this. We made a deal. I would match his portfolio 100%, so I would have some skin in the game, and we set up a very simple portfolio. 50% in a low-cost ETF tracking the S&P 500, and another ETF tracking tech companies. I chose Vanguard's VOO and VGT. I did so because of the low fees, and please see my video on fees after this one, as even the simple SPY ETF has more fees than you actually think. Over 1% when everything is added together. Well, here's the view of how these portfolios look today. As you can see, those 5,000 became almost 20,000 in our portfolio, and the S&P 500 returned around 13.5. So we did pretty good here. But this is actually not the real portfolio, and not the real final balance. As my colleague called Mike, he realized that adding to this portfolio would boost performance, and he kind of went all in for a few years. So just to clarify, a simple $5,000 investment and no more contributions, no withdrawals, just investing once and doing nothing after that. That would have ended up being almost $20,000 in 9 years. That's 4x. Imagine what the compounding could do in 30, 40 years. Remember, it's exponential. So, let's say he could stay invested for 40 years, and the compound annual growth was around 10%. That 5,000 would end up being a bit over 226,000, and all he had to do was nothing. Just be patient and wait. But, as it usually happens, when people realize that investing regularly and investing as much as you can, that snowball grows very, very fast. And you see results much faster. Mike realized that adding to the portfolio every month made the gains go up exponentially. And by now, he also understood that even if the market goes down sometimes, this is what investors call buying opportunities. This will speed up the wealth creation a lot faster. Well, to spare you for the individual deposits, I have used the final balance for his portfolio today, and it's a whopping $200,000 in just 9 years. And that's with the COVID crash and some bad years in between. Yes, he put around $75,000 in the portfolio. That's around $8,500 a year or around $700 a month. But now his snowball is started and it really picks up the pace. He knew the market would reward this, and even with a horrible 2020 COVID crash, he still made out like a bandit, and he plans to keep this portfolio for a long time. So what's the moral of the story? To build wealth, live below your means, invest as much as you can for as long as you can. It's really that simple, and that's the secure path. Don't get smart and trade in and out. Do not invest in shady startups because they could become the next Tesla. Don't get carried away. Don't try to find the needle in the haystack, just buy the entire haystack. Stick to the plan and build your main portfolio to be a passive one. Now, when you have what I call critical mass, you can start another portfolio where you play around with single stocks. But keep the main portfolio going. This is your insurance. Then you can play around with single stocks and other investments. So, remember to invest in you. The more you learn, the more you earn. Bye.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning. These ladies know that I'm sinning, and this is just the beginning. I'm closing in the night inning. There ain't no point in resisting.